Hello, everybody, and welcome to Project Deep Throat. This is a show where we'll be discussing the X
Hey, how
Files,
you doing?
the X Files episode of the week, and it's so we're your hosts. I'm Trina,
Yeah.
and we have Immortal Coil,
And
and
this is the voice
yeah,
of Immortal Coil. Yes.
yeah. Go ahead, do your
How
thing.
you doing, everybody? I just I just wanted to drop a notice. This channel will contain strong language, sensitive subject matter, images, and content intended for a mature 18 years or older audience. Viewer discretion is advised. This video contains copywritten content. However, under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17 of the United States Code, this content is presented for the purposes of education and entertainment through the use of parody, satire, critique, analysis, and/or social commentary by means of subjective opinion. Welcome, one and all. Trina, that was a fantastic intro.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of recreate the opening of X Files, and I couldn't just use the X Files opening itself. I would have loved to because, it's an awesome opener, and of course the theme song is awesome, which we'll be delving into that as well. But I just want to say a quick hello to everybody in the chat. We've got Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective. Thanks for coming. The Beast. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Aloha.
Solar Warden, thank you for being here. So, Mr. Pulp Noir, good to see you.
Don't forget him.
Thank you all for coming. And thank you anybody who catches this on the replay as well. I appreciate that as well. And if you want to subscribe to Immortal Coil, his link is in the description. Here we've got something already. Tommy says he's seen a Bigfoot recently. It turned out it was just Brie Larson.
Yeah, she needs to cut her toenails. I'm pretty sure Lethal Lightning wants to marry her or do something to her. Geez, we've been trying to pull the trigger on this for a while now.
Yes, yeah, this has been in the works for a while, and finally we're doing this. So I'm happy. This is good. I think we're gonna have a good time, and I think the audience is gonna enjoy it.
Well, yeah, we're actually hearkening back to real entertainment.
Yes.
Back when TV was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice doing these kind of streams like I do with my horror stream, mostly retro horror, and it's just good, back when entertainment wasn't full of the messages and the agenda. It was just entertainment.
Right.
And this series especially was just so phenomenal because it was so ahead of its time. The subject matter and there's going to be a lot to get into with this.
A lot of digest. Yeah. Were you did you watch it during its syndicated run, or did you catch it like in repeats? Or
I actually didn't catch it until after it was already done airing. I think I started watching the repeats, and they were still airing the last season, I believe it was. So I was a latecomer.
So you didn't like hear everybody talking about it and wondering what the fuck? Or
I did actually. Yeah. A lot of people would be talking about it, and I just thought, because they talked a lot about aliens and stuff, and that wasn't ever something that really interested me. But when one time, I was just kind of browsing for something to watch on TV, and the X Files was on. It was on the repeat, and I said, I'm going to check it out. And
remember what episode it was?
with the episode, it was, can't remember the name of the episode, but he finds this jar, and it's it's like an ancient jar, and oh man, I wish I could remember the name of the episode, but yeah, it was just, it was a really interesting episode, and I was like, this really is an awesome show. And I was like, I can't believe I didn't ever give this a try. And that's when Fox was airing the repeats. So they would do it every night. So I would watch it every night, and I just got hooked. I was hooked instantly.
See, I actually started watching it in uh in the 90s, like pretty close to when it first came out. So Friday nights on Fox, they had like a sort of spooky block, and there was like Sightings, and then X Files, and then something that was kind of like Sightings but worse. And so Sightings was kind of like for those of you who've never seen it, it was kind of like Unsolved Mysteries. How there were certain episodes of Unsolved Mysteries where they would talk about like UFO sightings or something, but it was usually only one segment per, like 2-3 weeks, and you'd have to wait to see another one. Well, Sightings took that whole thing and kind of did it a current affair style, and it was just all about paranormal phenomena. And I was like, I was probably like 14, 15 when all that shit started coming out. So it was very enthralling to me, because I've always had out there experiences and been into occult and spirituality and ETs and all that kind of stuff. So it was right up my alley.
Nice. Yeah, I just want to say hi to a few people that popped in. Tina Bojan, nice to see you. Thanks for being here. She's a big X Files fan as well.
Oh yeah.
Lovely Sherry, nice of you to stop by. And yeah, I think that's it. And Tommy says that the one of the episode that stuck with him was the Christmas one. Do you remember that one?
Where they go to a haunted house with a ghost couple. No. I know eventually we'll get to it though.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was great. And
Yeah, there was, so it was, oh, go ahead, Mr. Poldenor.
yeah, and he said he started watching it when IFC was having a rerun of it. I didn't know IFC did that. Cool.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's a trip. I think that for a lot of us, this is one of the last syndicated things that we were able to see on regular TV, because I was getting it on the aerial antenna, and then probably not 10 years later, all that stuff was done away with, and then everything was digital, and you had to have a cable box and a wire coming to your house, and it's just
Yeah.
not a everything's just not like it was anymore. And sometimes like you'd have to hit your TV because it was not all scrambled correctly. It's weird.
Yes. Yes, I remember that very fondly, actually, I have to admit.
Oh yeah, and then like there was like a wind or power storm, and like your shit would cut out. It's like yeah. It's
Yep.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming out. Remember to go ahead and give a thumbs up on the video. It helps the algorithm, and then share this out. We know it's like our inaugural performance. You guys are here for some history. As the show goes on, I have no doubt that it will grow in popularity, and it's good to see like the true boots on the ground here with us.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, this is awesome. Tina Bojan says that her and her husband had the X Files theme play as a song at their wedding when they entered the ballroom. That is amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. I think I'd play that during the honeymoon, like when I'm unzipping my pants, just have it be like do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Bye.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yes, Tina says She-Hulk smash that like button with the
Yes,
green
please.
heart. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, because if you're a woman and you're watching this and you hit the like button, it counts as 2 likes. Maybe 3 because Trina's a woman. This is her channel.
I wish it worked that way.
Well, it should. I think that women are underrepresented in the likes community, right? Like you get 80% of the likes that the men do.
I don't know about that. I guess it depends on the content.
I know, right? That's true. If we weren't talking about the X-Files and it was something else, then you'd be blowing up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
right
So
on.
do you want to get into the I have a few clips of Chris Carter. One is the
Series creator.
origin. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did write the pilot that we will be discussing later on too. So tell us about the clip.
Yeah, the clip. So the clip that I'm gonna be showing, it's him talking about the just basically the origin of the X Files, how he came up with it, and you touched upon it with you mentioned sightings, and
Hmm.
that was actually he mentions that, and he mentions his inspiration for the X Files itself, the shows that inspired him. And yeah, this is an interesting clip. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into that, since yeah, this is the origin of our stream, so we might as well get into the origin of the X Files. So I'll go ahead and play that.
Fired up.
The X-Files came about as a result of my love as a kid of two movies on television called Kolchak the Night Stalker, which were fantastic and scary and had left a really big impression on me. And I looked at the television landscape and I realized there wasn't anything scary on television. And while I consider myself a light comedy writer, I think that the thriller genre is probably my strong suit. And so I decided to do this television show with two FBI agents, and it's no coincidence that Silence of the Lambs had just been in the theaters and it was a big hit, and I loved it. Two FBI agents who were investigating the paranormal from two different points of view. I just had in mind, it's funny, I remember writing an 18-page single-space outline for the television series, for the pilot. And I described Agent Mulder as more MTV VJ than FBI agent. I wanted him to be sort of rumpled and a little bit young and hip. And I imagined Scully as the sort of, for me, the ideal woman, smart, dedicated, and I chose to flip the characters. Typically, you'd make the sort of female, the sort of intuitive, emotional person, the believer, and the male as more skeptical. But I decided to change that and make Agent Mulder the believer and Agent Scully the skeptic. No, I chose the names Mulder because Mulder was my mother's maiden name, and Scully because Vince Scully, when I grew up in Los Angeles, was the sort of voice of God. I had pitched. It's funny, they didn't buy the original pitch for the television show, and I was, because Peter Roth was so enthusiastic about the idea, he was able to get me in to pitch it a second time. The second pitch involved me coming in with what was called a Roper survey, a survey that had been done by scientists, actually a Harvard scientist, about the alien abduction phenomenon. And what he learned was that there was a very high percentage of people in the United States who believed in aliens, believed in alien abduction, and some who even believed they'd been abducted. So I thought this is interesting that there are scientists, there are people who are studying this phenomenon from a scientific and skeptical point of view, but it actually opened the door for the investigation by law enforcement as well. I'd seen an interview on CNN with an FBI agent who had investigated satanic ritual abuse and claimed that he had not found any evidence of it. But I thought it was interesting that the FBI was actually investigating these kinds of cases. I did a lot of research on the FBI, and the FBI was helpful to a point, but I had done a lot of research by reading the alien abduction literature and sort of steeping myself in that the world of the paranormal. I pitched it once, I pitched it twice. The second time they bought it, but I think that they didn't know what it was. ultimately it replaced a show called Sightings that was on Friday nights at 9 o'clock. That was a more journalistic show. And I think in the beginning, I know in the beginning they wanted the X-Files to be as realistic, almost like a docudrama. And they actually convinced me to put something at the beginning of the show that I didn't want to put there, which was based on actual events that actually appeared as a legend before the pilot episode, because they weren't sure what it was that we were doing, and they weren't sure that you could do a show where you didn't wrap up the case with a nice little bow and explain everything at the end. I said, this is, I said to them, this is unexplained phenomena. You can't explain it, and that's the beauty of the show. But that was something that no one really understood at the beginning.
Yeah, so that's the origin of the X-Files. So I thought that was interesting that it was such a novel show at the time that they wanted it to be like a docudrama, and I can't imagine it being like that.
It almost sounds like it would have been like Cops or something. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine it any other way than it is. And for the man, I mean, Chris Carter's a legend. To
Yes.
imagine him like running around trying to convince some dude in a suit like this is a good idea. This might actually get watched by people. Like, here's some surveys. I could just imagine the bigwigs going like, okay, but Mulder's first name has to be Fox.
I know. But you know what? It just works. Like when I first, started watching the show, I had no idea, like, like I didn't even connect that his name was Fox because it was Fox Network. I didn't even I was just like, oh, okay, his name is Fox. Like, I just thought it was a different name, and I don't know, it just always worked for me.
Right. It's like Hawkeye Pierce from MASH or something. He
Yeah.
just has a kooky name.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like Frank Zappa was his dad or something. Name me Fox. And then like, what's his sister's name going to be? We'll just name her Samantha.
I know.
Right. Fox used
Yeah.
to get beat up at school, so we'll give her a normal name.
I know. Bones says the soundtrack to the show was awesome. Songs in the key of X. Oh, I know. The theme song. We're definitely going to be talking about that. And I have an interview with Mark Snow that I'll be showing you guys on that. It's all about how he came up with the theme song for the show, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, so I mean, if you haven't caught on yet, this episode of Project Deep Throat, and X-Files fans will know why it's Deep Throat. I mean, but yeah, if you haven't caught on yet, this is basically like a how the X-Files came to be episode. We will kind of touch upon the pilot, but I think this episode will be mostly kind of like the beginnings of the X-Files.
Oh yeah. And especially this day and age, it's hard to imagine X-Files not ever being on, especially with all the stuff that's come after it that's sort of spooky or government conspiracy or whatever. It seems like it's always been there.
Yeah.
But it made a big splash for a real reason, and none other than the man Chris Carter to explain it for us, huh?
Yeah. Like I said, this show was so ahead of its time. Just the whole government conspiracy, the getting into the cover up. I mean, we thought, like, normies kind of just thought we're just watching a show and this is interesting. I had no idea that things would be, I don't know, like almost worse than what X-Files showed us.
Yeah. There was a time when nobody knew who Area 51 was or what it was, but now it's like so lampooned and it's in every thing that it's like the government pretty much has to be like, yeah, Area 51 is is a real place, but there's no UFOs there. They probably moved the UFOs in like 1985 because they knew that shit was gonna get out.
Yeah. Who knows? I yeah. Yeah. I don't even know where that stuff could be. I have no idea.
Well, and that's what's interesting because Chris Carter, it seems like he peripherally did some homework, but then as the show grew and went on, I actually have heard that they were contacted by certain people in government programs saying that, hey, you're actually not that far off, and
Yeah. Yeah, he actually talks about how because he did consult with the FBI, like you would do, like if you're doing a show about like police procedural, you'd consult with the cops to say how realistic is this and stuff like that. So he did do that, and he talks about like how the FBI was useful up to a point, and yeah, that was I was amused by that.
definitely.
But yeah, I have another clip. If so, do you want me to show the one about the theme song, the of with Mark Snow, or do you want to see more of Chris Carter?
Let's hear more from Chris Carter.
Okay.
Yeah, the father of the X-Files. He's
Yeah.
responsible for all of this.
Yes. Okay, so in this one, he talks about how he came up with casting Mulder and Scully, and yeah, this is another good one.
I was looking for, of course, telegenic actors. But I was looking for somebody, as I said, who was offbeat for the character of Mulder. Somebody who was smart, somebody who was irreverent, somebody who was funny. I lucked into David Duchovny. The casting director's name was Randy Stone, and he brought David in with a lot of encouragement that this was a person to look at. I had not seen any of his previous work, so he was brand new to me. I would end up seeing clips through the casting process. But I didn't realize how funny David was originally, because he's very dry, but he is one of the quickest wits I know. I think this was a character who had to make you believe in the paranormal, and David had the ability to get out big blocks of dialogue to play the role of the informed believer. And he had to be as convincing to Agent Scully as he was to us. And so I think that what David brought was an intelligence, an intensity, and of course his humor. Jillian came in, I remember the day. She was sort of disheveled. She looked like a little bit like a street urchin. She was immediately I saw in her the young scientist. She was intense. She was smart. She had and I still think this is one of the most interesting things about her. She had it has to do with her breathing. She had an intensity about her, and if you really watch the X-Files closely, you can see in her that that intensity, I think, which is something that really made the scientist believable in the show. Yeah, I think that Jillian, she not only is she attractive, but she was intelligent and able to deliver a lot of scientific information believably. Mitch Pileggi was an actor who had come in and read for us in the first season several times, and I kept telling him we'd find a part for him. We didn't know that he would get a co-starring role and be with us for the life of the series. Mitch Pileggi didn't come until later, but David and Jillian were both actors that I had to fight for, if you will. I had to root for them in the audition process. They were not the only actors that read. There were several other actors that read for each of those parts. There were many voting parties. in the room, including the network executive who wanted to go with another actor, not David Duchovny, and I was able to convince him and everyone else that David was the right choice for the show. The same with Jillian. I don't think anyone saw her as the bombshell that they might have imagined. You'd want to cast being television, and they couldn't imagine her in a bikini probably. But Jillian was somebody that I lobbied for and won approval on later on too. Casting is all important in television and in entertainment, but the choice of David and Jillian ended up being brilliant, but the truth is I never really had the opportunity, besides maybe one small instance, to actually have them read together, so I didn't know what the chemistry would be. So that first day we shot with them together, which was in Mulder's office. It is a now sort of mythic scene where Scully goes down and visits Mulder, and he says, nobody down here but the FBI is most unwanted. But it's their first really sparring with one another about the merits of the paranormal, the paranormal. The chemistry is something that is just there or not. You really, I don't think, can develop it. And luckily, David Duchovny is a very charming man, and he was charming with Scully. And my wife always said that the beauty of Mulder and Scully was that Mulder always treated Scully with respect, and he was protective of her. And I think that came through very early on.
Yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
that
A couple of the things he said was just hilarious because I could imagine him taking it to a board of fucking suits, and then it's like, well, Gillian Anderson's okay, but like, how about Pamela Anderson? Or, like it's gonna be like Dog the Bounty Hunter, but it's like cops, a docudrama kind of thing. This
yeah.
show could have been like really cheesy, really easily. Chris Carter had this vision, and he fought for it.
I love that. Yeah. I so much respect to him, really. It's the way he just decided these are the two, and I'm not gonna bend on this. Like that. God bless him for that, because yeah, Mulder and Scully, they really had that magic chemistry, and yeah, the show would just not have been the quality it is without it.
I really like that point he made where he was trying to do the logical scientist and the devoted believer. It almost reminds me of like a Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock kind of relationship, and for him to initially have Mulder be the scientist and then flip it around, that's actually true feminist empowerment. It's not all this like bullshit it's turned into in a modern era. This like Scully's a real like in her place woman, and she has agency, and you believe her, especially when you read the script. She's rattling off all these scientific terms, and she has to sell it, and she does. Gillian Anderson's a fantastic actress.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, I just want to say hi to a few more people. Toy Mafia, thanks for stopping by. Bone, always nice to see you. Adega, nice to see you as well.
Dega Outlaw, all these are fellow savages. I appreciate you guys showing up here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
That's
excellent.
the casting, man, he was just spot on. Like I'm just so glad, he had this vision and just did not give up on it. And yeah, I agree with you that Gillian Anderson definitely has, like, she has that strength about her, but she's still very feminine, and like it's not like a girl boss type thing, I guess is a term for it. She doesn't come across that way. She just comes across as competent, and like she she's got the education which got her to where she is, just like anybody else. She was,
Sure.
yeah, and she sells that role very well.
She does. And then something else he said that I thought was interesting was there is that sort of like feminine girl next door kind of thing that makes Mulder want to feel protective of her. And I think
Yeah,
even as us guys who sort of like vicariously became Mulder, Gillian Anderson is a very attractive woman, and there are times where and popping caps in people, but like then there's times where she's just like literally scared. There's a scene in the show where she thinks she has like marks on her and she jumps right into Mulder's arms. Uh,
yes,
really good stuff.
yeah, and that's really like you see, how and that's getting into the pilot, and so you see how, like, in the pilot she's a little bit combative because she's kind of, she's sent in on this mission to basically debunk w- what what Mulder is doing. And so she kind of goes in with that attitude, like, okay, that's my role, then, and I'm going to fill it. But then at that moment in the pilot where she sees she has those marks on her, and she makes herself vulnerable to Mulder by, like lifting up her shirt and having him check her. And
Mhm.
she you could see that she trusted him enough to do that, and he was respectful of her. And it was such a convincing scene, because when he said, "Oh no, you're fine, it's, just mosquito bites," and yeah, she like jumped into his arms, and that's the moment where you really see, like, that they have a relationship. It's like not like a, girlfriend boyfriend type thing, but they just have this kind of special relationship that develops so quickly, even though they're very yin and yang.
They are. And by the end of this first pilot, they have both gone through something extremely strange together. And, I can't wait to start breaking it down. I have notes about the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
so one of the things that's a hallmark of the X Files that I think everybody associates with it, even more so than Mulder and Scully, is that music, Trina.
Yes. Yes, you want to get into that theme now?
I do. That song just like instantly creeps you out and like makes you primed for something out of this world.
It is so distinct. Like, everybody recognizes it. You don't even have to be like this huge fan of X Files to know that that's the X Files theme. It Yeah, it's great. So yeah, this is a little bit longer clip. This is Mark Snow, and he's the composer. And yeah, I will go ahead and share that with you guys.
The archive of American television.
Was that so? I see some people saying that they thought it was muted. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear anything at all. I was actually trying to get a hold of you in the private chat. Yeah, it sounded like it was muted.
Okay.
You want to try it again?
Yeah, let me give that a try. Let's see. I don't know why it would do that.
It's because it's our first show. It's because not everybody has thumbs up the stream. You guys, there's what is there, 10 people watching this? We only got 5 likes. Come on.
All right, give me a second, guys.
Yeah. Pulp Noir says I blame the aliens.
I don't know how to fix this because I can hear it and I don't know what the problem is.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. Is it it's Mark Snow,
Yes.
X-Files music, and it's the Archive of American Television, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can do a share screen.
Yep. Sorry, guys. Bear with me for a minute.
Yeah, we got monkeys running the pipe organ back here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so if you can share my tab.
Yep, we got it.
Okay, let's see if we can get this thing going.
Kinds of CDs of different groups and music. They said on this one, I like the sax here, I like the singing here, I like the drums here, I like the keyboard here, I like this, piece of music and here, and so those are the things I kind of like. He said, I'm not saying copy any of it. I'm just saying, where my head's at musically. Okay, so I listen, I come up with something, and I think it's really a shame that I don't have that anymore. That's too bad. But whatever it was what you'd think a sci-fi show theme would sound like. What do I mean by that? I mean like fast, loud, something like that. So he comes and hears this thing and says, "That's good. That's really very good." But it's just a little overproduced, and let's just try it again. But he was so nice. He was so really decent and respectful. Comes back again. Same thing happens. I write something else along those lines, and he goes, "Oh, it's I really appreciate your work and your time, and I know you're a really good composer, but I'm looking, okay." The third time, same exact thing, and then I said, "Now look, I wasn't upset or impatient or anything. I just said, I have an idea. Why don't you?" I didn't say, "Why don't you get lost, and I'll I'll take it from here," which I implied. Why don't you go about your business and I'll go about mine. I'll try something. We'll start right from scratch. We'll throw all of this away. So he said, "Okay, good idea." He leaves, and I turn and I put my hand, actually my elbow, forearm on the keyboard, and there was this sound effect of this echo, delay echo effect on the piano sound, and it went da 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 ba 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 ba. And I said, "Well, that's pretty good. Now I wonder if you do 2 notes, what's that sound like? Ba 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 ba. Well, how about 3? Ba ba da ba ba da ba. How about 4? Ba ba da da ba da da ba da da ba da. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, let's consider that." And he kept saying, "I just make it simple. I just don't want overproduced and and, and big and what you'd expect. I just really want it honest and simple, and And I thought, okay, well, here's a good start with this da ba da da ba da da ba da da ba da da. Okay. And I thought, all right, what's next? Next thing is what goes under that? All right, let's just try one note, one single low pad with some other sounds in it, but on that note. I think that note was an A for all you people out there. So that's just holding da ba da da ba da da ba da da ba da da. That's good. All right, now what? There's something missing. Oh, it's the tune, it's the themes, the melody. All right, let's fool around with that. So on the piano, without any of that echo sound, I just da 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 da, da whatever it was, and it slowly came to this ultra simple tune. And then the final ingredient was what plays it, what instrument plays the thing. And I'm thinking, well, this has to be really, really different. And what could that be? And I just kept experimenting with all kinds of sounds in my library. And here comes the whistle sound. There was this thing called Whistling Joe, number 126 on the Proteus synthesizer number. But it sounded pretty good. And my wife, she's hearing this. She's walking, the door was open. She's walking outside in the backyard. She comes, he says, what the hell is that? That's really good. That's really interesting. I said, you think so? She said, yeah, it's got this eerie kind of whistle thing and the simple accompaniment that's going along with it. And you think it should be more than that? And I said, well, I don't know. Let's just see what he says. And, and I said, hey, you can whistle too, right? Yes. Well, how about, humming along with it or whistling along with it? She, oh, no, Anyway, I got her to do it and combined it in there. Anyway, so he calls up and he says, anything cooking? You got anything going? I said, yeah. I'd like you to hear this anyway. He comes over and he hears it, and typical Chris Carter fashion, he's listening, he's sitting there, and I'm watching him. I'm watching for any kind of, reaction, and not much. And then he finally says, I like that. That's good. All right, let's go with it. Okay. So I thought, boy, that was easy. I should have started that from the beginning. So that was how the theme came to be.
History in the making. It's funny how many things are almost accidental. I know we got a couple of musicians in the chat when you're just really not trying or you're just making fun of it and then something works.
Yeah, I love that story. It's so funny how he started with this like really producing this big sci-fi like theme and that probably would be great for any kind of sci-fi movie, and then ends up with like accidentally hitting the keyboard and is like, hey, I like that sound. I love that.
I'm thinking of the show that we almost could have gotten that has like Star Trek fight music and Pamela Anderson's tits everywhere, and like there's a Ken doll and it's like, stop aliens, and like it could have been so corny, but I'm glad that it wasn't.
It's fun. That's awesome. So people have Scully and Mulder showing up at the door.
Oh, that's good. I hope that they're liking and thumbs upping the video because we don't know what we can get. Right, the beast. I hope Scully's coming to the door. You're under arrest. Don't you ever break the U.S. code again.
Standing all of like 5 feet tall in her heels.
I know, right? The beast is like giving up right away. He's like, no, I'm sorry, man. You're right.
It's funny because her height is you can tell, like, even though they have her in heels, you can tell that she's so much shorter than Mulder. And it actually, like, in one of the episodes, they taught he picks on her about um her little feet. Do you remember that?
I do actually. It's funny because you think like she'd not be tall enough to get on the ride at Coney Island or something.
Yeah. I think she's actually
Uh,
in real life taller than me.
she's probably taller than Tom Cruise. I've seen pictures like behind the scenes of Top Gun where they have Kelly McGillis like leaning over sideways almost so that Tom Cruise is at least as tall as she is.
Oh my god. I think I've seen this is a little bit off the subject of X-Files, but I think I've seen Robert De Niro wearing platform shoes.
Oh sure. Yeah, all those little guys, they're cute. You know, you just kind of stick them in your pocket and go along.
But
Right
yeah,
on.
so so you do music. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that interview and everything?
Well, so it's interesting. He actually gave the exact synthesizer that he used and the exact program. So when you sit down at a synthesizer, which is like a fancy word for a keyboard, like an expensive keyboard, instead of just like hitting the keys and it goes ding dong dong, you have a menu that you can scroll through, and then usually each sound has a number that goes along with it. So all those real hardcore X Files fans, they can look online and find that same keyboard and recreate the thing, you know. And that song is so iconic. Like I think, like you're saying, Trina, people who don't even watch the show know what kind of a song that it is. I've seen like podcasts where people come on and they start just like rambling away about like weird conspiracy stuff, and then like you'll hear the do 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 do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a trip. And then he mentioned the delay setting. So a delay is just you hit a note once and then it makes the same note like 2 or 3 times and each note is quieter. So it's simulating like the thing where you're shouting into a canyon and you're hearing it come back to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Oh, we got Vinny in the chat. What's up, Vinny?
Hey, Vinny. Thanks for coming by. Nice to see you.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking the X Files. This is hopefully going to be a weekly show. We got 2 interviews with Chris Carter under our belts, and then we just heard from Mark Snow, and
Yep.
we're about to dive into the pilot episode.
Yes. So there's one more clip, and he talks about the cult following that X-Files ended up having, and this is a shorter clip, so, and this is the last clip, and then we can get right into the pilot. So here he is talking about how the audience.
I think by the first season, the end of the first season, because we did 25 episodes that first season, it had found a solid audience. But it wasn't until we moved to Sunday night that I think it got what I would call its large cult following. It's interesting. I think that we ended up doing these conventions, X-Files conventions, and you would get at the conventions 3 generations: grandma, mom, or dad, and the kids. And so you'd get sort of 3 generations there who were all fans of the show. So it really was hard to come up with a perfect demographic. We were a big hit in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic. But as far as who were the X-Files watchers, I would say the most avid fans were probably women, and continue to be. That's what I'd say. I think that what attracted women was David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. Simply, I think that they are the secret to the success of the show. I think because it was smart and it didn't write down, I think it tended to find a smart audience. I think that the X-Files, because it was always scary, it was always thoughtful, it was always intelligent, and it was always unexpected. I think that was really what found a following. I think we were one of the first shows, if not the first show, to develop an internet following. And so we had immediate feedback at 10 o'clock every Friday night. There would be chat rooms that would light up, and we would get a real sense of how the episodes were playing and what the people liked. All of us sort of had our online experiences and took different things from that experience. I think that it developed, it had an impact on the show because being a cult show, and having a core audience, you really can see how you're reaching them and what they're responding to. And even though I have to say that we never really took suggestions from them, we heard them loud and clear every episode. I paid a lot of attention, and I paid a lot of attention to all the written letters I got as well. And I mentioned that early on I got a letter from somebody who said that the episodes were best when they were personal. And so I actually named a character after the person who had written me that letter.
That's very savvy of him. So here we see.
Yep, go ahead.
So here we see, like in our modern day and age, we have creatives in Hollywood who are sitting on their perches, kind of like throwing out breadcrumbs to the masses and saying, like, you better fucking like this because this is all you're gonna get. And here Chris Carter is in the 90s, like the internet's a brand new thing, and he's getting feedback from his audiences that he's incorporating into the show. Like so much so, like the Lone Gunmen, they were like internet geeks. And they come in a couple seasons,
Yes. Yeah, basically, that's pretty much what I was going to say. Is it's just how awesome of him to be so attentive to the audience and just be listening. Like, it's so easy, when you get to the position where you think you're above everybody, like you just get a swelled head because of your success. You can easily just kind of just not even care, just keep doing what you're doing. But he's talking about how he not only just paid attention to what the audience was saying, he named a character after someone who wrote him a letter. Like, that's awesome.
So we want to thank Martha Kimboat for writing that letter. All right. I was shocked because he was talking about X-Files conventions, and he's like, so we had grandmothers and their daughters and I was like, okay, that's kind of an interesting way to lead. But then he revealed that a lot of the core demographic was female, which
Yeah.
And I never really thought about it that way because obviously I'm a man, but I guess there's just something about David Duchovny, huh?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. David Duchovny was very easy to watch.
That's right.
I
How many
thought I
loads of
was
laundry did he inspire?
Yeah, I always thought he was gorgeous. But I want to say, hey, Vinny, thanks for stopping by. And Lion Ratton, nice to see you. Thank you all for being here.
Oh,
So that's pretty much all the interviews with well, there actually are more if you want to see more interviews with Chris Carter, and I think there might even be more with Mark Snow as well. It's in the description where you can find all those interviews, and I think it's fascinating hearing from Chris Carter. I just really respect him and for what he gave us. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for him to and the show went into production, and I think the first episode aired, the one that we're about to talk about, aired in 93. So he's like really brainstorming and putting this together in like 1989, 1990, 1991, when so much stuff was going on in culture. I mean, like everything was changing. We had a new president, music was changing, the X-Files is coming out, the internet's coming on, and people didn't have cell phones back then, but everything was about to ramp up.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I remember because 93, I was in 10th grade. And I remember there were kids in my school that would be, I'd hear them say, did you see the X-Files last night? That's when it switched to Sunday nights.
Hmm.
And you know, like I said, I didn't watch it at that time. I didn't come on till I think it was about, I think it was like, yeah, well, it was when the last season was still airing is when I started the show. So 2000, oh man, I can't remember now, but yeah, but yeah, I just remember, you know, the other kids would be talking about it. And yeah, like I totally missed it when it was live, but I'm just glad I eventually found it.
You know, it's weird. So yeah, I was watching it as it was going. I saw the first episode on TV. I don't know that I watched the first episode when it first aired live, but I remember seeing it on TV and just thinking it was a far out show. We were
Yeah.
actually, me and my father and my brother, we were living in Washington State. We still do. When all that stuff was happening, and a lot of this stuff was filmed in Vancouver, BC. So
Hmm.
it was really easy for us to pretend like, yeah, everybody knows that Bigfoot lives up here and this show's being filmed and there's UFOs flying around, and it's like you were a part of it while it was going on. And it wasn't so far underground and dorky that it was lost upon everybody. Um, but it was something, it felt like it was ours. I remember getting really pissed off at David Duchovny when he uh, quit because he wasn't getting enough money or whatever. It was just like, come on, we need Mulder.
Yeah, and he didn't want to be up in Canada anymore. Like it did, they moved the show down to what did they started filming? Was it in Nevada?
It was somewhere like that. David
Yeah.
Duchovny, and not to say that he's not talented, but you can tell when stars start throwing around their clout like that. That's usually when the TV show starts to change. Like
Hmm.
we mentioned MASH earlier, when Alan Alda took over MASH, and it got all preachy and weird, and it wasn't as funny as it used to be. You know,
Yeah.
people trying to and we're seeing that nowadays, like the people who are in Hollywood and writing scripts and telling us what's good for us. They think they know better than we do what we need to be watching, and I'm going to make my audience think. But no, it's just like shut up and pretend to be Mulder. That's really all I needed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so let's dive into the pilot.
Let's chew off some meat here. Okay. So I made some notes here, and the first thing that I remember seeing was that there is a girl, and she is running through the woods, and there's a bright light and this shadow figure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it says that she has this nosebleed, which so I don't know how far into alien abduction lore you guys are. I'm like a mega nerd when it comes to this kind of thing. Um, Nosebleeds was like a very telltale sign. Like people would wake up and there'd be blood spots on their pillow, and um, we'll see the reason for that later on in the show.
Yeah.
Um, and then we meet Dana Scully. What'd you think about that, Trina?
Well, I that was a good that was a good scene because um that's when like so the episode starts off with, you got like a kind of you kind of get this like thriller vibe from it, and then you get into the actual FBI building, and with the scene with Scully meeting the director and those two other guys, one of the guys that smokes a lot. um
Yes.
and that was when like the government intrigue started. And I was just as captivated by that as I was the part where that weird stuff happened to the girl. And so yeah, I liked that scene. I liked how, they were kind of interviewing her for the job. They definitely were looking for someone who was gonna debunk Mulder's work. And we later find out that the reason why they want to debunk his work is because he's getting a little too close to the truth. And her being, like logical, the
Absolutely.
scientist. Yeah. Yeah. So they basically pick her for the job, and figure that, she'll be the right one because she's not a believer in the paranormal, supernatural, alien type stuff. Um, so yeah, and she catches right on to that because she even asks, "So am I to believe uh, that my job here is to debunk Agent Mulder's work?" And they
Yeah.
kind of like non-answer her. They're just like, "We think that you'll your observations will be fair and stuff like that." So
Yeah.
she gets the message though.
Like, we're sure you'll make the right call. And I
Yeah.
think it's genius writing. So they show this weird shit out in the woods, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And then, like, who do you even ask about that? And then boom, the FBI. And
Yeah.
Scully, like I was saying, I read the script for this pilot before airtime, and it says that she's giving she's talking over a slideshow or something,
Mhm.
and it says that she is present and confident in her femininity. That is the words that Chris Carter wrote. And then on her way to meet the cigarette man and Beavis and Butthead or whoever that was, um it says that as she walks by, people are sticking their heads out of their cubicles and like ostensibly to check her out as a female.
Yeah.
So obviously Scully's hot. Like she's a very good looking woman. All the guys that were watching the show was just like, Scully is a fine piece right there.
Yeah.
And she knows what she's talking about. So and the thing that gets me going about this meeting in the office was she picks up right away, like, so am I supposed to debunk this? Is that what you guys want me to do? And it's like I don't know if they were counting on her being naive, or they were using her position as a as a doctor to say, like, okay, let's throw something official at this just to shut this guy up. And then
Mhm.
cigarette man, he makes like so much out of just standing there and looking at people and just looking creepy. And every time he's on the show, it's that same feeling, like, who the fuck is this guy?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, he definitely has that presence. I wish that when that in that interview with Chris Carter, when he talks about casting, like Mulder and Scully, who he chose for that, I
Mhm.
wish he got into the cigarette smoking man, because what an awesome cast he was. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
He's
like
he and he was through the show through the entire run. They
yeah.
talked about the guy who played Skinner, but I think the cigarette man might be as famous as Mulder and Scully. Because
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, I don't even know if they ever say his name, but like we learned stuff about who this guy was and how he got into the position that he was, and how he's connected to Agent Mulder's deep throat connection later on.
Yep.
So but all of this stuff is there, and the acting, the first time you get together to act, the performances are a little bit stiff compared to how it would turn into, but
Mhm.
everything's there, Trina. I mean,
Yeah.
like, right away, like I was hooked in the first couple minutes.
Yeah,
You know?
I totally agree. Yeah, rewatching the pilot was is awesome. Well, I rewatched, this show, I would say once a year or once every 2 years. I just love it. It just never gets old. And rewatching this pilot, for this stream was every bit as awesome as any other time I've watched it. And paying special attention to like the interactions. Yeah, just God, yeah, the acting is just amazing. And the way the just the presence of the cigarette smoking man, the way he just kind of looms there, doesn't say anything, but you get this creepy vibe from him. And even like Scully looks over at him and is like who is this guy? Like this guy's weird. And yeah, it's totally there. This Yeah, I agree. And then when she goes down and meets Mulder, um they have an instant chemistry.
Yeah, and what gets me about that, Mulder knows right away what's going on.
Hmm.
You know, he like reads her resume back to her like out off the top of his head.
Yes. Hey Steve, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, I thought I got a kick out of that because so she she was obviously recruited for this position and she did her homework because
Mhm.
that's what you do. And so she already knew about Mulder because of his, he's he's very
Spooky.
well known for, catching that serial killer. And
Yes.
yeah, and being like he's like top of his profession and profiling.
Yeah, he was
um
like an Oxford
y-
educated psychologist or something, right? And he
yep.
applied like a behavioral model to catch a notorious serial killer who was running around just poking people.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, so she pretty much already knew him by that reputation.
Hmm.
Plus she reveals that she knows him by derogatory nickname Spooky Mulder because of,
Right.
the stuff he's into.
That's
Um
right. And then
yeah.
another piece of iconic X Files and present in the first episode, the "I want to believe" poster, which
Mhm.
is right below me if you see that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right there in the first episode. The script is talking about how Dana goes downstairs and Mulder, just like Chris Carter said, he's like, welcome to the FBI's most unwanted. And he has
Yes.
all this like Bigfoot shit, and he has like the poster up there, and there's like files and like slides and all kinds of stuff. So they really do a lot just showing his work environment says a lot about who his character is supposed to be. And then that line, do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I really love that scene.
Yeah, he
She
might as
walks
well have said your father's lightsaber.
Yeah, that was such a great scene all around. Because that's our first time meeting him as well. And she opens the door and it's like, okay, so this is Mulder. And yeah, the first thing we see in Mulder's office is I want to believe. And how famous is that poster? Everybody knows what that poster is, even if you're not a fan of X-Files. Like there's so much stuff that comes from X-Files that has made it, into the mainstream um and just like has branched out far. You don't even have to be a mega fan to know what all this stuff comes from. I think that's just fantastic.
Yeah, totally. I would even say like guys like Neo and The Matrix came out in like 98, 99.
Hmm.
uh Neo had a sort of Mulder thing to him, and he had this like, "Whoa, what's going on? Like the truth, like the real world, like there's, all these things that got developed later on in pop culture all came from this one show,
Yeah,
and like who wouldn't want to be paid by the FBI to go and chase flying saucers, man? That's like a dream job right there, but
I know.
and we find out later in the show Mulder has personal reasons for doing this, but
Yeah.
he fully expects that Dana is just coming down to shine him on and write some like hack report to shut down his office, and then he has to go back to, you know, profiling guys with mustaches and thick glasses.
Yeah. Tina Bojan says, I like that the actors who played Mr. X and Skinner also played Rufus and Azazel in Supernatural.
That's
That's
true.
yeah. And I loved Supernatural for like the first 5 seasons.
Yeah, same. I was trying to get my family to watch it with me, and they just, they wouldn't do it. They'd watch Buffy, but they wouldn't watch Supernatural. I'm like, it's the same thing.
and the real quick, I know this is a little bit kind of tangential, but the Supernatural, they kind of take a lot of inspiration from X-Files as well, because I think don't
They
Dean,
use Mulder and Scully as their
yeah,
fake FBI names. Yeah, they
yep,
sure
and
do.
they flash their badges like Mulder and Scully did.
Like real fast, and then
Yeah.
that I kind of made a joke about it when I was tweeting it on Twitter, but like that famous Simpsons episode, Mr. Burns is like running around all radioactive and people think he's an alien.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mulder and Scully have to show up and do their Springfield thing.
Yep.
That's some pretty cool stuff. So Mulder's basically like, yeah, you're here, might as well get into it, and he starts getting into the meat of the matter of the case.
Mm-hmm.
So he's revealing that there was a series of deaths related to kids who are all in the same like high school class, and they all turn up dead, and they all have these marks on their low back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the case makes it to Mulder's desk, and so he shows that slide to Scully, and he has like the chemistry of the surrounding tissue, and it's written out like what you would see in chemistry class, and she says, well, it's organic, and she's like, I don't know what this is it some kind of synthetic, I can't remember what she called it, but like synthetic protein, I think she asked. And what he was like, nobody knows. And I think he has a little bit of animosity towards her at this point, because he knows she's there to debunk him, even though she's actually being professional, and she's just really going about it as she's just trying to solve a case. But he, understandably, he's like, a little on guard about it. And
Yeah, well, everybody's calling him spooky in
yep,
the lunchroom kind of thing, and
yep,
here comes Dana Scully, and he knows, like, he's vetted her. He knows what she's qualified in. He
mm-hmm.
knows that people want to shut it down, and the only way that they can do it is through the bureaucracy of it all.
Yes.
So everything's a game, and he is so like, he has that sort of sarcastic, nihilistic kind of thing that was going on in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was kind of blasé, even the stuff that you were interested in. But
Yeah.
if you look at it from the point of view of the character, and we've seen the show, so we know what Mulder's gone through. He's on a crusade, and he's this close to something related to it. Now he's getting stonewalled at work.
Yeah.
So it's intense. So yeah, he flips Scully a bunch of shit, and he's almost trying to piss her off and trying to get her to, he's not playing nice on purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally understandable, because like later in the episode we find out, why he was so drawn to the X-Files,
What his
and
stakes are. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, the so basically, before we reveal that, they investigate this case, and like I said, Scully's being very professional, and Mulder does end up loosening up a bit, but while they're on the drive to the graveyard, he is a little bit like kind of sarcastic towards her, and she's taken it in stride. Like, I gotta give her props for that. She was, just going along and just listening to him, and she was like, being respectful and all that stuff. And um yeah, she was definitely good. Like, you could tell she was trying to uh earn his trust. And but
Mhm.
understandably, he's still guarded because this is personal for him.
Oh,
But yeah,
totally.
so
And I'm glad this isn't a modern show, because like Dana would have came in all like girl boss and like, I'm gonna tell you how the X
yeah.
Files is gonna go, and like you're gonna shut the fuck up and you're gonna listen. You're gonna get on my program, Mulder.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be so awful.
It will. So real quick before we go on with the show, the idea of marks on the body. This is actually one of the things that Chris Carter pulled from, like at the very start of the show. It says like the following program is based on true incidents.
Mhm.
So there was in particular, there was a guy named John Mack, and he was a PhD that he went and took a bunch of alien abduction victims, put them through hypnosis, and uh, walked them through their experiences. Some of them just had stories to tell, but some of them actually came back with physical uh, marks. And actually, the marks that I hear more often than not were scoop marks, where like a little bit of their skin was dug out in certain areas, not necessarily the low back, but in areas where it wouldn't be necessarily painful. So like the lower leg is mentioned, things like that. So for there to be something physical, something tangible, that's unexplainable, that's also kind of low key. um he really did his homework. It's all there. I have notes on this throughout the rest of the show too. So really, really interesting stuff. He really was into the abduction lore.
Yeah, absolutely. He and yeah, like I said, there's a lot more interviews with him, and I do encourage fans to check those out, because he does get into how he did, he really did do his research, and he kind of like he got like you know um firsthand accounts and stuff like that. Like, yeah, he wasn't just he didn't just like read a bunch of stuff and then make a show about it. He definitely did the legwork.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was
So
definitely a passion for him.
yeah, totally. So I think that the incident takes place in Oregon,
Hmm.
and so Mulder and Scully, they go to this town, and they're supposed to exhume a body, and
Yes.
they have like a backhoe, and they have like a couple of people standing around, and there's like a asshole sort of coroner, and there's an asshole sort of detective, and they're like, what are you doing? You can't do this here. What the hell? And
Yeah.
this is actually after Dana Scully has noticed that the same coroner did autopsies on 3 of the previous bodies, but the 4th one, which is the one that they're exhuming, had a different coroner, because I guess the guy was on vacation or something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and I loved that scene, because even Scully, she was like, "What the heck? There was no autopsy done," and she was like, "What kind of horsecock operation is going?" You know what I mean? And yeah, I really like that, because it, she did give off a little bit of a vibe where she was definitely not a believer.
yeah, but she
Um,
was like professionally offended by the lack of
yes.
follow through on this, and she's like, yeah, just like you're saying, like, what kind of Mickey Mouse bullshit is this? You
Yes,
know? Um,
absolutely.
so that's like infringing on her profession. She's offended as a doctor, and she's like, well, I got to go down there and see this now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was well done, and how they, oh, I loved it. How they're exhuming, they're taking the casket out of the ground, and the
Yeah.
belt snaps, and it goes
Oops.
rolling down the hill. Oh God,
Right. It's like doop, 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 doop.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
and then Mulder, because the casket opens a little bit, and Mulder goes to open it, and the guy goes, "This isn't official. No, this isn't procedure." And Mulder goes, like, Yeah, you think?" Like, I mean, it's just like they really highlighted how what we think at the time is the ineptitude of it all. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's really made to seem that way until we get later into the show. We
yeah.
realize why shit's showing up like this is early on, but then the casket opens, and then what do we see in there?
Yes, that was wild. So, yeah, yeah, it definitely did not look human, and, yeah, Mulder's, like, having a field day. They get it back to,
The
the
autopsy.
coroner's office.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, where they're doing the autopsy, and, he's taking all kinds of pictures, like, he's just having a field day with it,
Oh,
like,
yeah, he's in a candy store. He's like,
yeah.
"This is exactly what I was talking about. I told you. I had pictures and you didn't believe me, so now," and he's all in the Polaroids, and Dana's sitting there trying to, like, you know, do the medical dissertation, like, 3 centimeters below the medial patella, and Mulder's like, "Yeah, fuck, in your face."
Yep.
I dig
Oh, that
that.
was great. That was great, and
Yeah. So he's sitting there hypothesizing, and Dana's trying to be like, okay, this is definitely not a human. I would guess maybe it's like a great ape ancestor,
mhm,
or like a orangutan, or something like that.
mhm.
But now I don't know if you watched Fox back then, but there used to be they would show like wild stuff, and there was this show that they played once called Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction, and it was hosted by Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember that? So Fox, the same network that aired X-Files, they got hold of this footage that was purported to be from 1947, from the crash at Corona, New Mexico, or Roswell, New Mexico, as
Mhm.
everybody knows it. And it's some parts of it are pretty convincing. Some people have said it's a dummy, all that kind of stuff, but it was sort of presented in a similar fashion. Now, I don't think like this is like rips it off as much as like the Lord Kimbo episode, where it was really like done up. But Fox, the network, actually made a reputation out of having stuff like this on it. Just as much as like it was famous for things like The Simpsons and Married with Children, it was also famous for Alien Autopsy and the X-Files and sightings. It's crazy stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I remember that.
so Mulder's taking Polaroids, and um uh is this where she finds the implant?
Yeah, she finds an implant. It shows. I think it shows up in the X-ray.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's an unidentified metal. So that's that's that baffles her. Obviously piques Mulder's interest.
Oh yeah. So a metal that doesn't exist naturally, at least not on Earth.
Yep.
Oh, and
Something that hasn't been at least identified yet.
right. And then this is also another thing that's directly pulled from alien abduction literature. So nasal implants have been x-rayed and found to be very up high in the nasal passage, like almost in the ocular cavity, which is where
Mhm.
your eyeballs sit, if you guys don't know anatomy. Um this implant in particular looks a little bit different. So the most the ones that I'm familiar with from the literature were more or less perfect spheroids, and this thing was more like two spheroids with a cylindrical piece connecting them.
Yeah.
But the function of this is it was hypothesized to be something like a radio tag. If we would tag like a whale or something and then let it go, and then that way we know where it is, and if we needed to see it in 3 months, we can get on a boat and go and find it. It's the same sort of idea, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, sort of like when you can microchip your pet.
Absolutely, same idea, and I remember being a teenager and seeing this on TV. That corpse actually freaked me out a little bit. Like it wasn't like, okay, I'm done, I'm gonna turn the show off, but it was kind of like it was thrilling. It was like like you're repulsed and terrified and like intrigued all at the same time. It's gross. It's like when you find like a old raisin or something that has hair all over it. You're like,
Ah,
yeah, what is
yeah.
that?
Okay, that's disgusting.
It is. It's like, what is that? A prune covered by a sneeze? Ugh. Right. So they find that, and then Mulder's like, "Well, what's that?" And Dana's like, "I don't know." And then she's so they show her like this is what I think is funny. She's doing work later on, and she's like typing on a laptop, like a 90s laptop issued by the FBI.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys remember, like, in the 90s, how much laptops were? They were like $3,000, and like everybody has one now, but like back then, if you had a laptop, it's like your computer was portable. You were that important.
Yeah. Like, oh man, yeah, nobody had a laptop. I mean, barely, we just barely got computers.
Yeah, there was somebody in the chat earlier was talking. Yeah, Bone. He was talking about how Zach Morris had a cell phone, but like Zach Morris's cell phone was like one of those brick things that give you a tumor in like 20 minutes if you don't turn it off. It's crazy though, because you're amazed by the technology. You're like, oh my god, she's like a remote agent for the FBI, and she's so important that she has to type on her laptop.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was cool. It's a trip, and just how far we've come. Um, so at this point, I'd like to bring up Scully has this like dorky fucking boyfriend back home named Ethan, right? And Ethan's like I think he's introduced in the episode a little bit earlier, but he's introduced to show kind of like where Scully came from. And like Ethan's a very like safe kind of dorky, like like he's the kind of guy that if you're 30 and you haven't gotten married, you'd marry a guy like this because he's harmless, right? But he's not very exciting, is he? Especially like compared to Mulder, who's all like mysterious and difficult and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of Ethan as a woman, Trina? Does he push your buttons for you?
No,
No.
no, he's just like, he's like, he's just, he's like the good guy, but he's not, there's no passion.
Right. So he's specifically held up to show how wrong he is for Scully. And maybe like if she had never met Mulder, she could probably tolerate him. But it seems
Yeah.
like she's always like making up excuses why she can't go on a date with him. She's like, "Oh, I gotta go to Oregon. I'm sorry." you know. Or
Yeah.
they're on the phone later and she's like, "Well, I know it's early, so I'll let you go." Like he calls sometimes and she's like washing her hair or something. He's just a dork. Ethan's a
Yeah.
dork. Yeah. Um okay, so what happens next?
Yeah, so after that, after they're finished with all of the lab findings and whatnot, um uh they still don't know what what like she's typing up her report, and she basically says that it's some kind of it's some kind of humanoid type figure that has, but it's definitely mutated, which explains its appearance. So she still doesn't know after all that work, after the autopsy, everything they do, they do DNA, they do the x-rays, they do everything, and she still doesn't know. So she surmises that it's some kind of uh genetic mutation. That's what a scientist would think.
Right. And this is where, contrast that with Mulder, like he wants it to be an alien,
Yes.
and she, I think if she had the evidence that it was an alien, she would say so, but all she knows is that it's not human.
Right.
But not being human doesn't necessarily make it an alien. So there you go. There's the science right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like she's just like left unsure, and just and like you can tell that she wants the answers too, but she doesn't look in the same direction as Mulder.
No.
Um
And to her credit, she's doing what the FBI asked her to do. And
yep.
and she's not doing it with malice, but she's like, she recognizes the extraordinary high strangeness of the situation that she's in, but she's
Yes.
still trying to remain uh honorable to her credentials. She's not just going to jump off the bridge with Mulder, because at
Yep.
this point Mulder really hasn't been cooperative. He's been flippant,
Right.
and he's even doing things like getting out of cars and walking away from her and not really like finishing sentences. And
Yep.
there's a feeling that she's kind of like running after him, going like, now wait a minute, damn it.
Yes. Yeah, like they actually show that as they're driving in Oregon to that grave site, and they actually like this weird thing happens where the car shuts down, and he stops the car, he gets out, and he marks an X on the
Spray
pavement.
paints the road, yeah.
Yeah, and she's just like, she gets out with him, and she's watching him do this, and he's like, she's like, What's going on, Mulder?" And he's like, "Oh, um,
Probably nothing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah, so yeah, it's very like kind of brushing her off, like he just doesn't want to like cooperate with her. Um, and that actually becomes that point when that happens. That actually becomes important later on in the episode. Um, but yeah, and that actually happened before they got to the grave site. But yeah, so the we covered the autopsy finding and stuff, and then after that she uh they they visit the psych hospital where Billy and
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 Peggy.
yes, where they're staying. Well, they find out that they're staying there. They didn't know that ahead of time. They were going there to ask questions about the about the what was her name, Karen, that died at
Right.
the beginning of episode. And that's when they find out that Billy and Peggy are actually long-term residents there, and they're like, what, we had no idea. So they go in
Sure.
and they see that Billy's in this like wake and coma, and Peggy's reading to him. And then when Mulder finds out that that they were there too, he's like, we'd like to do a workup on Peggy. And she flips out when she hears that.
Oh
And then
yeah.
her nose starts bleeding.
Yeah.
And
And she
yeah,
has a seizure.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So
And
I find that interesting. So Billy Miles is in this persistent vegetative state.
mhm.
He's basically like the guy in the Metallica video, but like without the COVID mask on, right? And Peggy, this is also funny. This is also one of those things that has filtered out into pop culture. This is 1993, and like Peggy is one of these archetypical 90s weirdo girls. You know, she's like when you read the script, it says that she's just like unsettled, but like the way that Peggy plays it, I've seen so many other movies set in the 90s where if there's going to be a strange girl, she kind of acts this way.
Right.
You know, where they're either like rocking back and forth or they're talking in a sing-songy voice, and she's like saying things like you know, he wants me to stay close. He likes it when I stay close. You
Hmm.
know, and maybe that's part of her psychosis. Maybe she's like projecting onto Billy. We don't know, because at this
Right.
point all we see is that Billy's just like checked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's awake, but he's not like like it's kind of like locked in syndrome where he's like his eyes are open and can like he can understand everything that's going on, but he can't move voluntarily. He can't do anything.
That's right. He can't remember anything. Right. He can't tell if this is true or real. Yeah.
But when Peggy flips out, Mulder discovers that she has the marks on her back as well.
She has those same marks, and she has
Yep.
the same. Well, Mulder wasn't there for the nosebleed, but we, as the audience who has seen the first scene, she's exhibiting the same symptoms. So we know that there's a connection here. But you know, the orderly standing there like, you know, and Scully certainly is standing there like, Mulder's just like, okay,
Yep.
bring it. Round 2, fight.
And at that point, Scully gets mad and actually walks off and out of the hospital. And Mulder is following her and is like, "Oh, Billy said to say bye" or something like that.
Yeah,
And he's being
being a
such a
cock
jerk.
again. Yeah, absolutely.
And he's like, she's like, "What's going on, Mulder? How did you know that like those marks were going to be there?" And like she's just like, "What the heck is going on?" And he's like, "Oh, what? So you can write it in your little report?"
Right.
Yeah, and she's like, she's like, "I'm here to find the truth. You need to trust me." And she's not giving him any reason not to. Um, you know, but so Mulder ends up saying, "Oh, okay, you want the truth? I think these kids have been abducted by aliens."
Yeah.
And
Been
and
abducted
she's
by who? No, by what?
by what? Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, and so she's just kind of like standing there and she doesn't mock him or anything. She's just kind of standing there like,
Yeah.
yeah, just taking it like she just took it in like he said it. Like, okay. I don't
Totally.
know what to do with this information. Doesn't compute.
Wanna at this point, if you're watching the show and you've never been into alien abduction lore or anything like that, Dana's acting the same way that the audience would be. He's like, "I think they were taken by aliens," and she's like, "What? What? Taken by what?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know, and
she's acting like the majority of people would act.
absolutely, you know, and again, if this was done today, you know, she wouldn't let Mulder talk to her like that. She's a strong woman, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like yeah, if this was done today, I think she would be the she would be Mulder. She would be in the lead.
She totally would. She'd walk outside and like deck somebody in the face, and it would be like Scooby Doo. She'd pull like the mask off. There's your alien right there. Bam.
Yeah, she would solve the whole
Solved.
case on her own, and Mulder would just be kind of like carrying her bags.
Right, totally. You know, and Mulder would have the hots for her, but she'd be like a lesbian or something.
Oh, dude, for real.
Okay, well, I'm glad that this was made in the 90s because they actually decide to go and do some investigation. You know, it's the I and the FBI, right?
Yes.
So they go out to the woods, you know,
Yep.
and Scully's kind of like, you know, what the, you know, and suddenly we see a bright light again. And then we see like the shadowy figure, and we think for a second that she's gonna get taken.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you remember the where his compass wouldn't right itself?
That's true. It's not
Yeah.
that far away, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that jerk from earlier is there,
Yep.
and he's kind of like, what are you doing out here? And she's like, well, I'm the fucking FBI. What are you doing out here? I think they have their weapons drawn, don't they?
Yeah, he even decks her and she falls down and he's
That's
like, "I
right.
warned you guys not to be out here."
Right.
And
You
yeah,
meddling
yeah.
kids.
He's like, you're trespassing on private property." And in I'm kind of like on his side in this argument because like they are trespassing on private property
Or
and
feds, right?
yes.
You guys tune into United Resistance on Tuesdays.
But yeah, so they're like, you two better leave or I'm gonna have to arrest you. And
Yeah,
he's not
totally.
messing around at all. So they
And
end up hightailing it.
kudos for him for knowing his rights as an American.
Yes. Yeah.
However, he is a
He's
he's not on the level. He's just kind of like deflecting. He knows the law, so he's like, you guys fuck off unless you have a piece of paper.
Mulder was explaining to Scully.
Yes.
That's great, Bone. That's awesome.
That's right. That's why we keep Bone around. All right. So he's kind of like, yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
And then they're leaving and they get in the car and Scully has this like dirt and she doesn't know what it is.
Yep. Yep. She has like this. Yeah, it's like this ashy dirt and yeah, she's like, I don't know what the heck this is. And then so so she has that, and then they're like, well, we'll have to have it analyzed. And as they're driving,
Yeah.
that they're like accosted by this bright light.
Yes.
And yeah, they end up
they experience missing time.
yes. And Scully said, what the heck do you mean missing time? And he's like, I looked at the clock, it was 9:03 when that, before the before the light hit us, and now it's almost 9:13. And
and Mulder's over the moon about this. He's like happy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's missing time.
Yeah.
We got missing time. Yeah. What do you think, bitch? Ah!
Yeah. He's like, put that in your report.
Right. He's all fired up. He's like, you don't know, but that's what happened. So this is another thing that's straight out of the UFO abduction literature. So the thing that would typically happen, and they actually end up doing this later on in seasons, is that alien abduction victims will be driving somewhere. They'll either see a light or they'll hear a noise or something. Their car's electrical systems will fuck up and go crazy. And then it seems like they're just driving along, but like mysteriously time has passed and they're like down the road by 5 or 10 miles.
Yeah.
And they're like totally checked out. But then like you go back and hypnotherapy and they have quite a story to tell. And actually the first instance of something like that occurring was in the Betty and Barney Hill case. Have you ever heard of that, Trina?
Yeah, that happened in my state.
There you go. So
yeah, that was the first reported abduction in the United States.
That's true. And it had the hypnotherapy. Betty and Barney Hill, I find this interesting because if you put yourself in the perspective of an alien who wants to study humans, they picked humans who were in an interracial marriage, which was very atypical for the 60s because that's still back when Black people were known as colored folks and they had their own section at the bar and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they went under hypnosis and medical procedures had been done. Betty Hill was shown star charts and they were, all this kind of stuff. So again, Chris Carter, he's doing his homework. He's putting in stuff that's tantalizing to a story like this, but is very much based in UFO research.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, he really did his homework and all this. And yeah, he's just awesome. did such a great job.
He did. Now there's a really important point here that I kind of glossed over when I watched it, but when I was reading the script, Mulder, she's saying like, "Hey, look, I got this weird dirt," and then
Mhm.
Mulder says something to the effect of, "Yeah, I think you have some of it on your clothing too." And it's kind of a throwaway line, but to what happens in Dana's hotel room, I think the fact that she was exposed to some of this dirt might explain some of what she finds. So what happens in the hotel room, Trina?
So yeah, so they end up at the hotel after all this, and the power's out at the hotel, so she decides to get ready for a bath, and as she's undressing, she notices something, on her lower back, and so she throws her night, what do you call it, bathrobe on, and goes over to Mulder's room and says, "Can you check this out?" And she's definitely, like, you can tell she's scared, and
Uh-huh.
that yeah, she has him check it out, and and yeah, that's the moment where I described that she really made herself vulnerable to Mulder, and
Yeah,
like she really, like, opened up that level of trust that, um and I think that whole moment meant a lot to Mulder as well. um so he checks her out and says, "Oh, you're okay, that they're just mosquito bites." So she's like, "Oh,
yeah,
thank God," and she hugs Mulder,
yeah.
and
And
he
she
hugs
almost
her.
like bursts into tears.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
very shaken. She was very scared, and yeah, and he actually hugs her back, and he's
he
like, "Wow,
does.
yeah." And I think that there was a that is when they really established the bond, because she's like, "I gotta sit down," and then, like, it cuts away to where she's laying on the bed and he's sitting down on the floor and they're just talking, and
Hmm.
he opens up about, what got him into the X-Files and why it's so
Yeah,
important to him. and
yeah,
and he must have definitely, at that point when she came in, and like, you know really showed that she trusted him and was open with him. um
definitely.
I think he felt like, "I think I can trust her," because he says, "Well, I'm going to tell you this because you need to know." But I think it was more than that. I don't think he just told her because she needs to know. I think he was really opening up to her.
I think so too. And it's funny because you think about early 90s TV and there always had to be some sort of like sexy titillation or something like that. So when we have Dana Scully like in Candlelight because the power is out and she's taking off her robe, like as a guy watching that, you're just like, fuck yeah, because Gillian Anderson's a hot girl. And I could kind of see Chris Carter having to include a scene where Gillian Anderson, the actress, is mostly disrobed because of the titillation factor. But the way that he works it into the script, it's all very organic. She can't work, so she decides she's gonna take a shower or a
Hmm.
bath or whatever. Calgon's gonna take her away. So she takes off her robe. And as we're sitting there like ogling Gillian Anderson's body, we notice she has those marks, and of course she freaks the fuck out. So she runs over to Mulder, and Mulder's probably thinking like she's gonna run over to tell him off because she's in a bathrobe, and but yeah, she's genuinely scared. And then that's sort of what Chris Carter was talking about. He says like in this moment, Mulder's walls fall and he becomes protective of Scully. And that's
Yep.
really when the defenses fall and they start collaborating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just want to say good night, Bone. Thank you so much for being here.
Good night, Bone. Sleep tight, buddy. Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And I like how they treated her respectfully. Like, they didn't just have a scene like that. Like, just have her disrobe for the sex appeal of it. Like they treated her, Chris Carter like treated her respectfully. That I like that. Um,
Yeah,
and
totally.
I love how Mulder is he tells Scully his story about how he was also recruited by the FBI while he was in school. No, I'm sorry. He was recruited by the FBI because of his success with profiling and stuff. And his success is what actually gained him access to the X-Files. And then he reveals to her about what Samantha, yeah, what happened to her, and
Yeah.
and why this is so personal for him. And I think that's when Scully is like Scully kind of sees him in a different light and decides. I think that's at the point where she decides, I'm not going to take part in any kind of agenda. If I'm going to be on this assignment, I'm just going to be basically I'm just going to do my job. And I'm not going to like work for the people that want to take Mulder down. I'm just going to do the right thing.
Yeah. And we also get the communication that Mulder is so he suffered the loss of his sister, and then like his family doesn't talk about it. Nobody mentions it. He goes to school in England and he studied at Oxford, and then the FBI becomes interested in him. And he gets all the way to the X-Files, and just when he's starting to get somewhere, he becomes blocked by his chain of command.
Yes.
People represented by the guys sitting in that office, and really represented by Cigarette Man. Because I could just picture in my head before Scully gets there, Cigarette Man's just like leaning into these two guys and, okay, it's got to be this way. And if you guys don't do it, it's your ass and blah, blah, blah. Because this kid Mulder and blah, 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 blah. And the only reason that Mulder hasn't been taken out outright is because he has friends in Congress.
Yes.
Somebody's looking out for him. Now, who that person is, we find out later on, but it's all here. It's all here in the first episode. Yeah. So so they get a call, and it turns out that Peg's dead.
Yep.
Peggy Odell has died.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they go and check that out and find out that she was hit by a car, that she had the guy who hit her said she just ran out right out in front of me. And Scully's like, how did she do that? And because she's been in a wheelchair.
Right.
So Scully's like, what the heck is going on here? And
more high strangeness. None of this stuff is making sense.
Yeah.
It's like a X-Files kind of thing. And then like they're out kind of running around investigating that, and then what happens to their hotel room.
Yes. And so he gets another call while he's at the scene, and says that someone has trashed the autopsy lab and has stolen the body. And Scully's what? They took the body? What the heck? So they and he's like, we got to get out of here. So they go back to the hotel to get their stuff, but it's up in flames.
Yeah.
And Scully's like, well, there goes my laptop. And Mulder goes, basically like, that was all the evidence we had. It's all gone now. And
yep, all his Polaroids, all their the tape that she was dictating into, it's all gone. This was a hit.
Yep. And so then that girl Teresa, she is the detective's, I'm sorry, the medical examiner's daughter.
Yes.
She runs up to Mulder and Scully and says,
you have to protect me.
You have to protect me. So they take her to a diner where she's, explaining to them as best she can of how she ends up in the woods and what happens and stuff. And she says like she doesn't know how she gets there. She just like ends up in the woods, like she wakes up and she's in the woods. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so like then Billy's father, the detective, and her father, the medical examiner, who uh, Mulder believes are uh, both in on it, on what's going on.
Right.
They show up and they're like, it's time for you to come home. And, they try to protect her. And Mulder's like, well, I don't think she wants to go, but, what can they
Right.
do? She's a minor and that's her dad. So he leaves with her. And
Yep.
yeah, so as they're standing outside the diner after she leaves. Oh, by the way, she ends up with a bloody nose as well.
Yes, she does.
And and yeah, and then they leave, and then she leaves with her dad. And then so Mulder and Scully are standing outside the diner, and yeah, they basically are both like they're in on this. They know what's going on. And so they decide to go back to the graveyard to see what's in the other two graves, see if
Right.
if what maybe same kind of bodies are there.
Maybe
So they
there's more
go.
like prune sneezes in those coffins.
Yeah, so they go and they're both empty plots, and Scully is just like, what the heck? And Mulder says, I all of a sudden he just like, I know what's going on. I think
Yep.
Billy Miles killed Karen Swinson. And she's
Yep.
like, what? How can someone in a coma do that? And he's like, he says he thinks it happened during the time where like you know how time stopped.
The missing time.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he thinks that something was in control during that missing time period.
Yeah,
And
because I think that Peggy's was wearing a watch and it stopped at like 9 something PM. Didn't she?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, that's right. It was like 9:03 on her watch, just like when Mulder's stopped working.
Yeah.
Tina Bojan asked, "Did you guys watch far enough into the most recent seasons where they confirmed that the cigarette smoking man is Mulder's father?" Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to watch all this stuff because there's something later on where it shows that he was the guy who actually shot JFK too.
Yes.
So,
Oh
you know,
man,
every
that
time I
those are
watched every time I watched the Zapruder film, I was like, "Nope, it was Cigarette Man."
I know. Those are going to be awesome episodes to get into.
I know. This is gonna be such a good show, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be a part of this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so Mulder thinks that Billy is being, like, remotely controlled by aliens.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Scully's like, "Well, how? He's a vegetable."
Yeah. And she ends up like they're standing in the pouring rain. He says his theory and she ends up cracking up in hysterical laughter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a combination of just thinking he's crazy or if she's been under so much stress that she just like, how if you don't laugh you'll cry, like it's one of
Yes,
those type of situations.
it is, and I wanna say that there's an element of fight or fuck in it too.
Yeah.
Like, they're almost about to clobber each other or they're about to kiss or something, and then, like, they just start cracking up laughing. So it's,
Yep.
we know, like, in the TV show, like, things are getting to, like, very tense. So how do you break the tension? You laugh.
Yeah.
That's a very good plot device. So,
Yep.
they basically both agree, like, "Hey, this is stupid. Do you wanna go and, like, do some science or some investigating?" And
Yes.
decide to go back to the insane asylum.
Which is very apropos for the time in the episode because Scully is basically losing it at that point.
Right?
So So they end up they end up back at this insane asylum, and because they want to check out Billy.
Yes.
And Scully laughs at him, but deep down she must be like, I wonder, because she lifts up the sheets and sees that his feet are dirty.
Feet are dirty.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Nick. Nice of you to be here. Nice to see you.
All 32 flavors.
Yeah, and so yeah, she discovers that Billy's feet are dirty, and she looks up at Mulder and she's like, Mulder, can you check this out? And and meanwhile the nurse is like, no, if anybody moved I would have known, and nobody can even take a breath without me knowing. And meanwhile
Totally.
Billy's feet are filthy, and
all filthy.
Yeah.
But Mulder gets in the orderly's face and he's like, all right, where were you last night at 9 o'clock? And he
Yeah.
goes, well, I was over there watching TV. And he goes, well, what show were you watching? And the guy goes, he should have been like, I don't know, I was watching Fox.
And it's funny how, because he goes,
I was watching The Simpsons followed by Married with Children on Fox.
I love how he goes right into like interrogation mode. Like that.
Totally. It's like, all right, bastard, where were you? Do you have any witnesses? Where's your ID?
Oh, that was good.
It's killer.
Yeah.
But so apparently Billy is up at night doing things that are physically impossible for his vegetative state.
Yes.
And Trina's laughing so hard her rib's about to come out of her nose.
Well, I just think it's funny. Like Billy's the one with the dirty feet, but Mulder's questioning everybody else at the hospital.
Totally. You know, and I'm thinking he's almost doing it to buy Scully some more time, because you can see it on her face. She's thinking the same thing we are. Is this the same shit that she was holding in her hand in the car? Is that what's all over Billy's feet?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that, that's pretty much what it is. You know?
Yeah, because she ends up taking a sample of the dirt, and they decide to go back to the woods because all of the other evidence that they had, that original dirt, that's all gone. So they have to go back to the woods to see if they can find some more of that, like
get a new sample to make it scientific.
Yep.
You know, because Scully's about to just be like, yeah, I believe you. Let's like fight the future or whatever. And then Mulder's like, well, you still have to write a report. And she's like, I guess we need some dirt for my report.
And that was an awesome moment because you have Scully, who is there to debunk him, and she's actually like, okay, I'm kind of like on Mulder's side. And then you've got Mulder, who is like, well, are you sure? Because you have to put this in your report. So he's also looking out for her. So at that point, you can see that they're a team.
Yeah. And that there's an actual function to both of their roles at this point.
Yes.
You know, it's like they've staked out their territory respectively.
Yep.
So that's cool. Things are coming together. Things are happening in the world.
Yeah, they're definitely forming that the traditional Mulder and Scully that we know and love.
Yes. So they run out to the woods once again, and then we find out that Detective Asshole is actually Billy's daddy.
Yep.
You know, and they're like, well, what are you doing here? He's like, well, Billy's out here. Well, how come you're out here? Because Billy's my son. Or maybe Mulder accuses him. You're Billy's father, aren't you?
Yes.
Piece of fuck.
Yeah. And so they see a bright light. Mm-hmm. Well, Mulder and Scully actually get a little bit separated again. And
they always get separated. Scully's always running around in the rain with her flashlight and her pistol.
I know. And it's always convenient because like they'll get separated. Mulder will see like an alien like 2 feet away from him.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, Scully,
did you see it?
Yeah. And Scully's like, across, like she's in the
She's
in
like,
the
no,
other
I was
part of
chasing my
town.
dog across the log. What's going on?
And man, I love
Mulder's
this
always
show.
like, it was right there.
I know, it's so annoying. Like you watch the show and you're like she's not looking and it's right there.
Right. They should have made an episode where he makes fun of it. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go check out the old cabin, and you're gonna be out here in the woods, right? And Mulder should be like, yeah, that's when the aliens are gonna come, right?
I know, that would have been awesome.
So she needs to say it all loud and sarcastically. I guess I'm gonna go check out the old fucking cabin over on the other side of the lake. Wink. She's holding up the okay sign. Yeah. That's right.
Oh man.
Because aliens are that dumb. They can fly across the universe. But they believe Scully when she says she's going to leave, but she's just hiding behind a tree. She jumps out. She's like, ha!
Like when a kid tries to hide, he puts a blanket over his head, but the rest of his body is visible, and he thinks you can't see him.
It's probably like the aliens know that they're gonna separate, so they come out just to give like Mulder shit. They're like flipping him off, and they're like rubbing their ass and just like making a face like, yeah, the asshole,
taunting the hell out of him.
Totally. No one's gonna believe you, spooky. We're just gonna put some more things up your friends' butts. Oh man. So you're right though. There's a bright light, and then who was there except for Billy and Teresa?
Yep. Billy's
Except-
walking like he wasn't ever in a vegetative state. And he's taken Teresa, and actually his dad tried to stop him. But that was not successful.
Nope.
And the light gets brighter and brighter, and then Teresa's gone, and so are the marks on his back.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. And then we're left wondering what happened. So the show was kind enough to give us like a post-alien abduction therapy session, which again is consistent with abduction literature.
Yes.
There was a really famous incident called the Allagash incident. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's...
No, I haven't heard it.
So the Allagash incident involved two like twins, and they were out. This was like in the late 70s. They were out on a lake with their buddy, and they were doing some late night fishing, and they saw a light in the sky. So they thought to each other, this is kind of cool. I've never seen something like this. Let's signal to it. So they get out a flashlight, and they do kind of like a Morse code thing where they're covering up the flashlight and then flashing a couple of times. And then I guess the UFO flashed back, and they thought it was cute until the UFO got really close to them. And then they freaked the fuck out, and they started trying to paddle back to the shore. And it was that classic thing. They were out in the middle of the lake, missing time, and then suddenly they're on the shore. The canoe's on the shore too, and they're watching the UFO go away. And they don't know what happened. They just kind of, quietly pack up camp and go home. But then they went and got hypnotic regression therapy, and this whole thing comes out about being examined and all this kind of thing. So this whole post-abduction debriefing, lost memory, let's recover it through hypnosis. This is very, again, we can't like interview aliens, so we use tools like this in lieu of that. And once again, Chris Carter, he's that hip. That's called the Allagash incident. I think the guys' names were actually Tim and Tom Wiener. Unfortunate last name. But this is all cool stuff. And so we get that, and then that's sort of the intangible thing, like, okay. And then we have Dana sitting in front of the same two FBI jerks.
Yep.
And Mulder, I think he's watching through a two-way mirror, and the cigarette guy is still there too.
Yes. Yeah, so the Billy's getting interrogated, and yeah, he explains that he and his friends were celebrating graduation when all of a sudden he saw this bright light that took him to the what he calls the testing place,
Yeah.
and they put something in his head, and he points to like his upper nose area, and he says that the light told him to gather his other friends, but that the testing didn't work, and now he's just afraid that they're going to come back.
Yeah. Which is interesting to consider whatever force is doing this, considering them as scientists, and they
Yeah,
have this like test population, but then like the experiment's not really working out, so they have to, essentially release their specimens. Either that or like their specimens, whatever they were doing, ended up dying. I
right.
don't know, like wasn't there some sort of a weird baby, like a pregnancy or something like that in this episode?
Not in this episode,
Nah, probably
but
thinking of something else then.
but there is a alien baby in another episode down the road.
Yeah, there's plenty of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, it was a weird alien baby. Yeah. So yeah, so essentially the FBI is sitting there talking to Dana, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Listen, you spun a pretty good story, but where's the science?" You
Yeah,
know?
they seem, you can tell that they're irritated
Mhm.
with her report, because she basically she backs up everything that Mulder says. The only thing is can't she can't really she just can't substantiate it, right? But she gives the same account of everything that happened. Um and they're upset with that because they wanted a different report.
Yeah.
They basically were
They
looking
wanted,
for.
yeah, Mulder's batshit, close down the
Yes.
X-Files.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. They wanted her to basically assassinate his character, and get him, essentially use that to get him removed. That's the agenda. And so they're really irritated that she just gave her honest accounting of what happened. And yeah, it's a lot of unexplainable stuff. And then when they're like they go to they they're like, well, you don't have anything that can can back up any of this. She stands up and she says, well, I have this, and she shows them a piece of metal in like a vial, and
Yep.
that's that implant thing.
Yep. It's the only thing
And
that wasn't taken.
yep, yep, that's the only piece of evidence that wasn't destroyed, she said. Um and they actually end up asking her, well, what does Mulder think? And Scully just says, well, Agent Mulder believes that we're not alone.
Yep.
And it's like, and I like the way that she frames that, because she doesn't say, oh, he has all these crazy theories, and she just matter of factly says, yeah, he has this belief. He doesn't believe we're alone. It's very benign the way she
Yeah.
puts it.
Very professional,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
And
And
yeah, so you can tell that they're very upset with that. And so they dismiss her, and she walks off, and as she's walking down that hallway, which we see her originally walking in to
uh-huh.
the to the to that room in the beginning, she passes the creepy smoking man, and
Uh-huh.
he passes her, and she stops, and she kind of like turns her head, and she's like, he's like, you can tell she doesn't say anything, but you can tell by the look on her face, like, who the heck is this guy? He is so weird.
Totally. It
Yeah.
does not say one word in that entire show. And then he takes that alien implant to the Raiders of the Lost Ark room,
Mm-hmm.
where apparently they know everything that's going on, and they know this is where the whole government conspiracy thing comes in, because they have a catalog, they have a warehouse. We see things later on in the series. Um, there we go.
Yeah, this is my friend Mike. He has a horror channel. He has no idea what this show is about, but he's just dropping by to show support, and I totally appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're talking about the X-Files, and this is one of my favorite shows. But thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, we really
Absolutely.
channels got to stick together, and
Yes.
yeah, go check out the horror channel.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Check his channel out. This is my
yeah,
design here
if
on
somebody wants
YouTube.
his link in the chat, that's cool too.
Yep.
There we go. But yeah, so apparently the FBI is just a kind of like a shell corporation for whoever the cigarette guy works for, because they
Mhm.
have a whole warehouse full of and we'll see this later on in the show, full of all kinds of unworldly things and things that don't belong here, just like categorized and shuffled into the shadows out of the light of day, never to be seen again, you know.
Yes.
And it's crazy, like Scully's just walking around with this thing in her sweater pocket, just like doo doo doo. And,
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, you don't have shit," and she goes, "Bam! I got this. You don't have shit."
Yeah, that was pretty good. I like that.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, but that was wild seeing where the cigarette smoking man takes that little piece of evidence, and that we find out that it's in the very middle of the Pentagon in that locked vault with all the other, like, probably top secret evidence. That was wild. And yeah, that's where the episode ends, right there.
And that's enough to hook us.
Yes.
That's one of the best pilots to ever air, ever.
For real.
Um, yeah. I'm trying to figure out, like, it says, I type into Google how popular was X Files, and it shows that it has ran from 93 to 2002, 2016, 2018. Huge cult following. It won 3 Golden Globe Awards for Best Drama. That's all off the strength of this pilot that had everything in it,
Yeah.
everything you could possibly want, and really succinctly sums up the X Files. I mean, this is my design. If you want to know about what the X Files is, just watch the pilot.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, if
Yeah,
you got
absolutely.
if you pay for Hulu, you can stream it off of Hulu. I'd recommend to you guys, if this is a regular thing you guys want to do, join us. Watch the episode before the airing of this podcast so that you'll be up to speed. We definitely want the audience participation. If you have something you want to throw out there for us to chew on, do it. We love you
Yeah.
guys.
I love hearing from the audience. I love the questions, the comments. Yeah, you guys, you guys really are just as much part of the show as anybody on the panel. We appreciate all of you guys for being here tonight. Yeah, it's awesome. You guys have been awesome tonight. Um,
Definitely. I mean, Tina and I have been working on this thing for at least 2 months, it seems like,
yeah,
month and a
yeah.
half, something like that. And just we finally got it together. Chris Carter was like, "We found the best audience." No, Trina and I found the best audience.
Nice. I love that.
You guys
That's
are it,
great.
and everything that follows afterwards. You guys were here for the ground floor.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll be doing this weekly, and yeah, each episode once a week. That will be the format, and yeah, looking forward to it. I think this was fun, and yeah, so that basically wraps up this stream. Unless you have anything more to add, Coil.
Uh, no, I think we've gone about 2.5 hours, just about.
Mm-hmm.
I want to recognize all the people that came out once again. You guys are the ones keeping us afloat. You guys are the ones that we're doing this for. Trina, you really worked your ass off with the intro and with all those clips. It was well worth it. And as far as a good first shows go, you know, we weren't as good as the pilot for the X-Files, but this is a pretty damn good first show, I want to say.
Yeah, you know, it was fun, and that's really like at the end of it, that's really what it's all about is having fun and um uh, all you guys in the chat, like, yeah, that's what it's all about. This was awesome. And yeah, again, thank you all so much for being here. And Coyle, thank you so much for being my co-host on this, my co-pilot in
Absolutely.
this show.
I love it.
And yeah, hopefully we'll see you all again next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be discussing the next episode. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely.
So yeah, everybody, hope you have a great night and a great weekend as well. And Immortal Coil, if you want to subscribe to him, I have his link down in the description. So yeah, awesome. You guys are all awesome and have a great night.
Take it easy, guys.